All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Trading Bitcoin with your host, Tone Vays. Everyone seems to like the new format, so that's exactly what we're going to stick to. We're going to go right away. No early announcements. I did 2 videos yesterday. I will probably do 2 videos today. I don't have much on the Ukrainian update other than messages from my friends in Kiev. We'll do those after. Let's go to the charts and do an executive summary on the price of Bitcoin. We are back inside the triangle. We are off the critical lows that would allow us to close, that would have closed the month below that moving average. Not closing the month below that moving average is important, but keep in mind, it's a really important element to keep in mind. Every time we have closed right at the border of that moving average, other than the very first existence of set moving average, and we broke below it. And we've already had a close right just above that moving average, and we're off that moving average. Remember what happened last time? We had 2 candles. One was a big drop candle that almost closed at that monthly moving average, but rallied off of it. Another candle that was a bearish candle that closed right on it. Then we had a nice rally, creating the expectation that we're going higher. And I was also expecting higher, but I also didn't expect the world to shut down with COVID. I always saw COVID as, even from the beginning, I remember I was the guy that was on the last flight internationally from Africa to America. I was literally on the last plane. You can probably Google this. What was the last international commercial flight from South Africa to America? And I was on that flight. If you can find a manifest, I would be on that flight because I got off the airport and I'm walking through the airport and I see on TV that all international flights between South Africa and America are done, and pretty much all flights from Africa to America are done. That was on March 20th. That was already after the crash in Bitcoin. It was on March 20th when I got on that plane. I was on the last plane. I think I bought the last seat. It was not cheap, but I managed to get my way on that flight. The wait list was unbelievable. So everyone panicked like the following day, that morning. Everyone panicked and tried to get on that flight. So I did not take the COVID thing seriously. And in hindsight, I was more right than I was wrong. But anyway, so this probably would have gotten us all the way up, but shit happens. We got plenty of political mess that could like rally, that could frighten people's confidence in Bitcoin. So I'm not ruling anything out. For now, that's a nice monthly chart. Wow, that was way too much time spent on a monthly scale. The weekly scale, we bounced right off that center line of the downtrend, but we are still in a downtrend. I want to, give you guys this rosy outlook on how great it is that we are above 50. Yeah, not sure why I have to sneeze every time I start these things. Like, I don't sneeze at any other time during the day, other than during the videos. It's really weird. Maybe it's because I'm talking too much. I don't know what it is. But we're still in a downtrend. Like I want to give you guys like a nice rosy story with unicorns and rainbows and how we're going to 100,000, but the charts are not confirming this yet. I'm sorry, they are not. The weekly chart needs to get above the short-term moving average, and it needs to get above the prior swing high. Until it does that, we are in now what is now a 3-month trend of lower highs and lower lows. Okay, we made a low, we made a lower high, we made a lower low, we made a lower high. And until this pattern breaks, until it breaks, I'm not going to be all bullish on Bitcoin. The moving averages are not looking good. The SARs continue to not look good. The MRI is on a bullish count, but that doesn't really matter because then unless the next candle is at a new swing high on a weekly scale, it will go back to a red count. So we still got a long way to go for the weekly chart to give us a bullish outlook. I haven't even looked at the oscillators in a long time. The RSI is not bullish at all. It is still looking bearish. The MACD is still looking bearish. I don't even see that it turned yet. Histogram's getting better, but that's not comforting enough for me. And the CMF is a total disaster. So it's really, really challenging to make a bullish case right now, even though the price is up. The price is up off the lows. Here is our allocation chart. The allocation chart looks great, but guess what? All we did was go above the very first hurdle. The current price of this 4-day candle with 7 hours to go is above the 3-period moving average. Whoopee. Okay, that is not enough. That is not enough to allocate. It is enough to, try to catch a falling knife in the middle of a capitulation, but I didn't see this as a capitulation because it certainly wasn't as bad as this one if you consider the prior candles. Now, yes, this was a massive 4 candles in a row, but this was happening during a very stressful geopolitical time, and it didn't fall enough for me to risk catching a falling knife. It certainly fell enough during the crash of March 2020, and it certainly fell enough during the crash of this January for me to take a stab at it. Probably fell enough over here, but I'm not even sure I was really covering this kind of chart and trading at the time. But for me, this was not enough. I will stay patiently and wait. And when the price is above both moving averages and they cross back over, I will start entering bullish allocations. There's nothing stopping me from going immediately from 100% cash into 50% bullish position. I'm going to wait and see on this approach. All right. Hold on. Let me pull out the live chat. I do see a comment from Mexico, a super chat comment from Mexico. All right. I'm going to stick to my 10 minutes, guys. I don't want to go over my 10 minutes. My stream is, how long have I been streaming? I've been streaming for 7 minutes. All right. I got 2 more minutes for the executive summary. The MACD is bearish on the monthly chart of the total market cap. Yes, I believe you. Okay. Let's move on. Daily chart. Sticking with a 10-minute executive summary. Good. We are above the prior swing high level. That is great. We never got to the MRI buy because we rallied off of these lows. On a daily scale, I would need this to prove to me that we have somewhat of a bull market. We would need to go above the 50-period moving average. You see, last time we had to go in bullish way earlier because the 50-period moving average was too far away. This time, the 50-period moving average is not that far away. It is somewhat close to the price of Bitcoin, relatively speaking. So because of this double bottom and so close to this double bottom, I am not risking a buy the dip knife catch. I'm going to wait for this price to prove it to me, and I'm just going to slide this arrow over because at this point, we are likely to hit the 50-period moving average. I am not jumping in on these trades as a position trader, as a longer-term swing trader. I am going to play the caution card and wait for more information on what's happening geopolitically, because the EU right now is voting whether to kick Russia out of the SWIFT system, and Germany and France, I think it's Germany and France, it's definitely Germany, but some other country as well, are not really interested in kicking Russia out of the SWIFT system because they are dependent on Russia for their gas and other natural resources. So EU's got a serious problem right now. They can't defend Ukraine. They can't actually vote against Russia. They can't really sanction Russia because they are basically sanctioning themselves by doing so. So it's a very tough situation. Can Bitcoin benefit from that? Possibly. There's one more critical question that I want to address when it comes to Bitcoin and Russia, and I'll do it in a minute after I take a look at a 1 hour chart. Waiting on the MRI. Right, we had an MRI top right here. We started pulling back. We had a 1 to 4 candle consolidation. It went higher. Probably one more MRI top, and I would expect another pullback. More reason not to rush into Bitcoin right now. I am not rushing into Bitcoin right now. GBC premium is probably looking better. Let's see. Nope, not really. See what happens by end of day. Okay, real quick. A lot of people are saying maybe Russia should adopt Bitcoin if they get kicked out of SWIFT. The answer is I don't believe they are going to do that. That is my personal opinion. Because look, This is my one comment on as it relates to Bitcoin, and then we're gonna wait before I comment on Russia and Bitcoin. Well, the financial summit is taking place the first week of August in Dominican Republic, but Unconfiscatable is taking place in less than a week. We got 6 days to go until the start of Unconfiscatable in Las Vegas. You can still get your ticket for the conference. We were able to negotiate with the Mob Museum and add another 20 people or so to our carnivory dinner. Out of the, I gave the heads up in the Telegram group chat of the conference for those that have already pre-registered for the conference, and they were able to get in. That's why we are down to about 5 tickets left. I got one or two on reserve just in case, another amazing speaker comes in. Another VIP ticket is bought. I was really concerned VIP tickets. I'm like, wow, these people can't even get in. We did expand it by a couple of seats. We did not raise the price. We did not want to gouge you guys. So we do have a few tickets left for the carnivory dinner. If you registered and you weren't in the Telegram group and you didn't know that a couple of seats opened up, because I was getting massively emailed. Now this is your chance to get in on the carnivory dinner. Is still available, but jump in real soon. You may want to clear cache in your browser. You may want to open it in another browser. If it says sold out, just open it in incognito mode or something, or another browser to see the tickets left. All right, just a heads up. All right. Oh, I gotta bring you some interviews. I gotta do an interview with Coin Homes and Lightning Ventures. I'm gonna try to do that maybe this weekend. I want to interview these guys, and I think that would be complete. I never got Adam back to do an interview on Jade. I'm gonna text Adam back to do an interview with Jade. I should probably get Rodolfo of CoinKite. That would be a good discussion. I'm gonna try to get these guys. If I don't do it before the conference, I'll definitely do it after the conference. I'm trying to do it before. To, will you visit West Africa? Wants to support. I want to visit West Africa. I really do. I really want to go to Nigeria. Always wanted to go to Ghana. I really do want to visit West Africa. I mean, that was the plan. My plan was to spend 2 months in Africa. I only made it to South Africa, and then COVID made me go back to the United States. And then I did make it to Tanzania and Zanzibar the following year, but there was nowhere else to go because of COVID restrictions. Guys, my future travel will be determined by COVID restrictions. Okay, I don't want to support countries that were tyrannical against their people during COVID lockdowns. I don't want to support countries that have a vaccine mandate. I'm not supporting those countries. So if you are, so that means no more Australia, no more New Zealand, no more Israel, no more Canada, no more Austria. So there are like a lot of countries on the list. Germany is on the border there. So I know I was very critical of the UK, but they seem to have, righting the ship, and it's hard not to go to the UK. Also remember, I don't see myself ever going to Hong Kong again. They've pretty much become China, and they were very tyrannical. I don't see myself ever going to Singapore again. These were some of my favorite countries to ever go to. I really like Brisbane, Australia. I was planning to spend a whole month in Brisbane, Australia, before I realized what Australia was really about. And the COVID situation proved to me which countries I need to support and which I don't. And I am way more supportive of Latin American countries now, and I'm way more supportive of African countries now. Yeah, that opened up my travel plans, and I'm way more supportive of the Middle East now, actually, ironically. I spent most of my year in Dubai in 2021. So my travel schedule is going to be very different, and I'm very interested in spending more time in Africa. Okay. All right, guys. Well, the executive summary is pretty much over. So let's look at the other markets. Oh, yeah. No. Here's what I was going to say about Russia and Bitcoin, right? So I don't believe Russia is going to adopt Bitcoin. Russia is not El Salvador. First of all, no one knew where El Salvador was or what they do. Hell, I didn't know where El Salvador was. And I have a degree in geology and a background in geography. I've taken courses. Like, I don't know how many other people have taken a geography course in their university studies, but I did. And I would not have been able to pick out El Salvador on a blank map of the world. Okay? Ask yourself that question. I bet you if a single US government person would have been able to point to El Salvador on a blank map of the world, I would have been impressed. Just one congressman or senator. Okay? So El Salvador needed Bitcoin. El Salvador needed to be more resilient. Bitcoin gives your country resilience. I said this on a recent Spaces. I think it was last night. It was a really good Spaces, mostly political Spaces. And so in that light, like Bitcoin gives your country resilience. It's the same battle tactic that Americans used in the Revolutionary War. They couldn't have a standing army against the British. They would have lost. So they had to go to this militia warfare, and that was their advantage. It was like, because it wasn't, it made them more anti-fragile, right? It's the same reason why America instituted the Second Amendment. It makes it very, very challenging for another country to come and attack America because most people have guns. Less people have guns than probably should, to make your country really anti-fragile against on-the-ground infantry. You can only like bomb it from the sky, basically, and just destroy everything. But it's hard to take over America's land, even for the federal government, right? We've seen these standoffs between the feds and the ranchers and the farmers. So Bitcoin gives you this anti-fragility. Russia doesn't need that. Russia sees themselves as the bear, as the motto of Russia. And I think most of the world unilaterally agrees that Russia is one of the three strongest nations in the world. It's US, China, and Russia, in whichever order you like to list them. Like, I don't see another candidate. If someone else sees another top three global power that they would put in the top three, well, I welcome it in the comments, right? But it's US, Russia, and China as the dominant military forces. Now, economically, Russia could do better. But from a military perspective, now economics also is part of the military, right? But those are the three world superpowers. Now, different people can put them in different order, right? Obviously, most people around the world would not put Russia first. But guess what? There is a lot of Russian people, probably Putin included, that would put Russia first, okay? They're pretty proud of their country, and they feel that they could alter the world in their favor if they get kicked out of SWIFT. And I'm sure they've been preparing for this. So Bitcoin doesn't actually help them with anti-fragility. Like, they want to keep control of the monetary system within their border. They do not want to give their people more anti-fragility against outside external attacks, okay? Russia may feel that propaganda from other places around the world will potentially sway their people. There are protests in Russia right now against the war in Ukraine. But that, again, just like in Canada and just like people on January 6th, could be very dangerous for those people protesting against the government. Now, however, if Russia was Bitcoin friendly, they can certainly see that these protests would have more power against the Russian government. So the Russian government, I cannot possibly see them having an interest in empowering their people more around the world. I personally don't see it. El Salvador's situation is different. El Salvador's situation needs to empower their people to keep their bigger and stronger enemies out of their border. Russia doesn't have an issue of keeping stronger and more powerful enemies out of their border. They're pretty damn strong. No one is invading Russia the way no one is invading America, the way no one is invading China, okay? So there's no need for Russia to give their citizens this tool to fight an enemy entering their border, the way the United States had to do it before there was a United States against the UK, and the way El Salvador is doing it now, because they are tired of the banking, the control over their sovereignty through the US dollar. And prior presidents of El Salvador were not able to maintain their own currency, which is why they were on the dollar to begin with, just like Panama, just like Costa Rica. So these countries that are on the dollar and don't have their own government currencies are countries that could not keep their own currency because the country was either too corrupt or in the past, or the leaders of that country would not know what they're doing, and they would those leaders were corrupt, or for whatever reason that country cannot maintain their own currency. More countries should admit this and go to the US dollar. But then again, by doing that, you are now giving the United States more power if you're using their currency. Now, here are some countries that use the US dollar: Hong Kong and the United Arab Emirates. They are both using the dollar. Their currency is pegged to the dollar. You may not be using dollars in stores like you do in El Salvador or like you do in Panama. You don't use the dollars when you go out shopping, but the local currency is almost for show because it is pegged to the dollar. I believe all of these pegs will eventually break. But the reason why they have a peg to the dollar is because they don't want to be responsible for their own currency, because they don't trust their own politicians to maintain a better monetary system than the US dollar. Most countries trust their politicians to maintain currency better than the US dollar, and most of them grossly fail. Okay, the US dollar has been the most stable currency versus most other currencies. They fail. Okay, so had Ukraine been using the US dollar this whole time, their currency wouldn't be grossly devaluing right now with Russia invading, making their population even poorer. Okay, now, would it be better for their population the last 4 years when there was somewhat peace between them and Russia by using the US dollar? Maybe, maybe not, because Ukraine is a very poor country, and I was in El Salvador, and shit in El Salvador is actually expensive. One of the reasons why it's expensive is because it's on the dollar. So there is good and there is bad. Okay, it's bad for the average day of life, but then when shit starts to hit the fan, your currency might devalue. You know, you all of a sudden, your life was more expensive the last 4 years, but in an incident like what's happening now, your currency is not going to lose 80% of its value in a matter of weeks. One solution to that is to save all of your money in US dollars or in something like Bitcoin. And I wish more foreign people did that. Instead, they take out loans in US dollars because of a lower interest rate, but now they owe a US dollar denominated debt while their currency goes into hyperinflation like Turkey did and Egypt did, and what's happening in Ukraine right now, and Russia as well. All right, I got off on a huge tangent, and we need to look at the charts. We need to look at oil. We need to look at the stock market. We need to look at Clown World, Twitter. So we got lots of stuff to do. We also have to keep an eye on what's happening in Ukraine. So Ukraine, people from Kiev are starting to move towards Poland. The people with the Ukrainian passport can now cross into Poland with simply a showing the passport. Poland is accepting Ukrainian refugees. My friend that texts me morning and evening, giving me an update on Kiev. They are leaving Kiev and trying to get to Poland. There is fighting around Kiev. I know the Russian government came out and said they are not shooting at civilians. I actually believe that they are not actively shooting at civilians. I don't think they want to destroy Kiev. Kiev is a very beautiful city. Lviv, I have problems pronouncing it, and I'm from this region. Well, kind of a little further north, but I am. For those that don't know, one of my parents was born in the Ukrainian territory. My other parent was born in the Russian territory. I was born in the Russian territory. Back then, it was all Soviet Union. So Lviv, which is a beautiful city that I have not been to. I have not been to Lviv. And I can tell you a story as to why I haven't been to Lviv, and Ukrainians may not be very happy. But that's because, look, I am basically considered American. I speak English without much of an accent. But I also speak only Russian. I do not speak Ukrainian. If someone starts speaking to me in Ukrainian, I'll pick up maybe 30–40% of the words because there's a huge similarity to Russian. More similarity to Russian than, say, Polish. Okay. When someone speaks to me in Polish, I'll pick up 5–10% of the words. When someone speaks to me in Ukrainian, I'll pick up 30–40% of the words. But some of the words, because a lot of words are very, very similar. So I get the gist of the conversation, but that's about it. So the further west you go, and this was, when I was in Ukraine in 2017, 18, back when there wasn't any fighting, but there was fighting in 2015, 14, 15. So the further west you go, the more intolerant Ukrainians are towards Russians. The further east you go, the more Russians are accepted. So me being Russian, even though I'm not like Russian, and I've heard some stories, I would not have felt comfortable going to this area of Ukraine by myself, as a Russian, by myself, okay? Because of the recent, fighting a year earlier between Russia and Ukraine. Now, I would not have any concerns going to this side of Ukraine, okay? Because this side of Ukraine has a lot more Russians. So me speaking fluent Russian over here and not having any ability to speak Ukrainian by myself would have could have put me in harm's way if I'm at some bar late in the evening. So I would not have gone. Maybe that concern is unwarranted. Maybe, I don't know. Like Ukraine, I like Ukraine. Like Ukraine is a very peaceful. It's one of my favorite places. In Kiev, it is pretty much 50-50. In Kiev, it would be, I was comfortable. I would say most people in Kiev at the time when I was there, 2018, 2019, spoke Russian. There's more Russian being spoken in Kiev than Ukrainian. That's how I saw it. Also, I don't speak Ukrainian, so I'm always speaking like Russian or English. Now, also the further west you go, the more people speak English. I mean, there's only so many languages you can speak. I know if you're from Switzerland, you speak like 8 languages, right? If you're from Switzerland, you speak your local language, I guess it's Swiss, and you also speak French and German and Italian because they're just surrounded by all these different countries. In Ukraine, over here, you get a lot of Russian. I would say a lot of Russian, a lot of Ukrainian, and very little English, a lot less English. Here, you get very little Russian, a lot of Ukrainian, and some English, okay? And here in Kiev, it's pretty much 33, 33, 33. It's like Russian, Ukrainian, and English. Maybe English a little less so, because you can only speak so many languages like fluently and easily. So here, everyone speaks, almost everyone speaks fluent Ukrainian, almost everyone speaks fluent Russian, and a decent amount of people speak good enough English, okay? So I think I explained like the language barrier. And the further you go this way, the more people are angry at Russians, and the further you go this way, the more people are tolerant of Russians. That was my interpretation. That's my personal opinion from spending time in Ukraine. Okay, I didn't spend that much time in Ukraine. I've been there about 4 times. I've driven in a car from Kiev to Odessa. That was perfectly safe. It's not like driving in a car from, say, Mexico City to Acapulco. I would not feel as safe. Anyway, I'm not even sure where I'm going with this tangent, but my friends from Kiev and are trying to get out of Kiev because there is fighting going on there. Okay, how many false flags? Do you believe the Russian media? Do you believe the American media? I don't know. Okay, last night I was talking to my family members. They told me to look into the situation in Crimea after Russia took over Crimea. The Ukraine was, obviously the Ukraine is not happy about it, and they were doing everything to kind of sabotage and make life difficult in Crimea. I'm sure the Russians were not happy about that. I don't really blame Ukraine for doing that. Obviously, Russia just annexed their property, which Russia claims is their property. These are very complicated geopolitical issues. And I'm sure Russia is very interested in taking over this entire territory so that, more utilities and fresh water is available in a place like Crimea if the Ukrainian government was blocking these kinds of resources for the people living in Crimea, which are mostly Russian, not Ukrainians. So do I think Russia is going to take a piece of this land? Yeah, probably. Now, here's another challenge. Ukraine is a big country, and Ukraine does have 20, 30 million people. And these people will be fighting for their country. So it's not going to be easy for Russian military to fight against civilians, because that's a lot of people. Russian military is not, 10, 20 million people strong. It's just not. Now, the Ukrainian military is no match for the Russian military. That's why the Ukraine is asking, common citizens to pick up a rifle and start defending their country. That's why Ukraine has called in anyone of holding a rifle age between 18 and 60. They're not allowed to leave the country. So they do want people to fight back for their country. Now, all the people of your country fighting against the military of another country is a pretty formidable force. This is why America had to have a draft for Vietnam, because the US military were no match for every Vietnamese picking up a rifle. So is Russia going to end up doing a draft to take over Ukraine if every Ukrainian picks up a rifle? I hope not. I have a lot of friends in Russia as well. And in general, in my experience in this region, the Russian people don't actually hate the Ukrainian people, and the Ukrainian people don't actually hate the Russian people. It's all about the government. Like, the Ukrainian people hate the Russian government. They don't necessarily hate the Russian people. The Russian people and the Ukrainian people are pretty much have the same ancestry. The people, and there's a lot of family between both nations. It's lots of Ukrainian people spend time in Russia and Moscow all the time, and the other way around. Many people are dual citizens, even though that's technically illegal according to Ukraine. So prior to last month, or prior to this year, prior to Joe Biden getting elected, how about that? I believe Ukraine did not allow flights from Russia. It was one-way sided, right? So I forgot. I got to look this up. Ukraine did not allow their people to fly to, or it was one way or another, right? So one of these countries was allowing people to come from the other. But otherwise, you got to go through Minsk, through Belarus. Now, Belarus, for those that may not know, is allies with Russia. Now, Belarus has their own, leader that's a little bit tyrannical and dictatorial, but Belarus is very tight with Russia. They are allies, okay? And they're not aligned. Belarus is not aligned with Europe. Belarus is aligned with Russia, and there goes my website. Okay, that's an update on Russia. Whoa, what is this? Yeah, this website is rough. Okay, here we go. NATO leaders are meeting virtually. NATO cannot attack because then it's declaring war on Russia, and nobody wants nukes to fly. So Ukraine's on its own. Oil is down. This is a huge spike in oil. Down. Markets are acting really interestingly. So I still expect oil to go up. I really assumed the 1 to 4 candle correction was over, and now we're going higher, but oil is going down. This tells me that the fighting is potentially ending or not as badly. I mean, that's what the market is telling me. It's what the market is telling me. Gold is down, so the panic in the market is ending. S&P 500 is up. Right off the MRI buy, my friends' positions in those assets looking very, very good in the trades that they've made. The Russian ruble is not crashing as much. Last I saw on news, and it's hard to get good news information. Russia is not taking the calls of the Ukrainian president to negotiate. Ukraine, I mean, unless Ukraine wants to, have more of their citizens killed by giving them rifles and having them shoot at Russian army, at the Russian military, Ukraine has to find a way to come to the negotiating table. They have to find a way to come to the negotiating table. And I don't think the US is helping. I really don't. I do blame a lot of this on the current administration in the US. Just like the last Russia versus Ukraine, it's hard for me to call this a war, but because it's pretty much one-sided. The last Russian invasion of Ukraine also took place on the watch of the same political party. Once could be a coincidence, twice is becoming a trend. The president of Ukraine also being so pro-NATO the last few years has clearly escalated the situation. Russia is still the aggressor. I still wish Russia didn't go in and start shooting up Ukraine. It's a horrible situation. I support Ukraine, but this is a royal geopolitical fuck up. And there are people to blame on many, many sides of the geopolitical fuck up that caused this. What happened back in 2014? Okay, so again, guys, this is not my expertise. I will continue to say this is not my expertise, but if you go to my blog, Tone Vays blog, okay, little history, Tone Vays blog. I used to write. I was a terrible writer. Remember, I started by writing a blog. Before I ever had a video, I was writing a blog. So the very first article I ever wrote was about, the government taking your Bitcoin. Where the hell is the rest of the text? Anyway. But look at the second article I ever wrote. April 2014. Oh, so the second article I ever wrote was about Ukraine. Okay, so those that, I have to click on it to see it. The second article I ever wrote was about Ukraine. So for those that, and of course, they've been delisted. Of course they have. Of course they have. Good job, YouTube. Good job. So those that put up those memes, so in all of last year you were a PhD virology expert on vaccines, and now suddenly you're a geopolitical expert. Well, some of us were keeping an eye on the situation and wrote about it 8 years ago. Okay, I was one of those people. So and I wish I can tell you what happened in 2014 through actual videos that I had posted, but guess what? They are all gone. They are all gone. Dmitry Orlov had very good things to say. Is this gone? Of course it's gone. Everything is gone, okay? So every single thing that I had posted back in 2014 about Ukraine is gone. It's no longer on the internet. It's gone. There you go. So you have to rely on people that were paying attention to this back in 2014, which I guess for my YouTube channel or for my YouTube viewers, I remember, and I have a pretty damn good memory. So here's what my view, my outsider view. This is before I ever been to Ukraine, by the way. This was written in 2014. I didn't get to Ukraine until I think 2016 or 2017. I don't remember. I have to check my old passport. Okay, when I got to Ukraine for the first time. So here's my view on what happened. Prior to this time period, the president of Ukraine, I believe, was Yanukovych. I'm trying to remember all the president's names. The president was Yanukovych, and he was a very pro-Russia president. Now, remember, Ukraine is a lot of Russians, a lot of Ukrainians, right? So a pro-Russian president was elected. I believe his Russian speaking ability was better than his Ukrainian speaking ability. And there were two problems with his presidency. He was pro-Russia, and the Ukrainians weren't happy about that. The other part was that he was very corrupt. Nothing new for politics, but more corrupt than the usual politicians. On the level of Hillary Clinton corrupt. Maybe more. Okay, so on that kind of level. Okay, not that George Bush and the Bush family is the same. By the way, I'm not just a pure Republican. Like, I think that the Bush family is a horrible family. Like I thought Reagan was okay, even though he started way too many wars, but was involved in way too many wars. So, but I thought Reagan was a pretty good president because he wasn't a politician. Just like Trump was a good president because he wasn't a politician. I did not like the Bush administration, neither of the Bush administrations. Now, I was too young for the Reagan administration. In fact, I was in Russia at the time. And I was still a little too young for the Bush senior administration, but I certainly wasn't too young for the Bush junior administration. And I hated that Bush junior administration. I really hated it. So you can't call me like a blind Republican. But man, I wasn't even a Republican back then. I was a Democrat. But anyway, so he was very corrupt. And it was those two things that sparked the revolution in Ukraine. It was, Reagan's war on drugs was very, very bad. It was bad. Yeah, I agree. It was bad. It was a really good interview. It was a good interview. It gave you a nice history of Ukraine. It was a good interview by Molyneux and Paul Craig Roberts. I mean, I haven't listened to anything Molyneux has said in the last, 5-6 years. Nor I haven't heard much from Paul Craig Roberts either. Anyway, let me go to my conference. We'll keep it here. So, okay, this is becoming a long freaking video. So those two things led to the revolution in Ukraine. And had the president not been so corrupt, being pro-Russia and having deals with Russia is not necessarily bad, okay? It's your neighboring country. You need good trade relations with your neighboring country, okay? So that wasn't the biggest, it was a big issue for Ukrainians, but perhaps a little overblown on that being the biggest issue. Now, his corruption problems is a real issue. Like, your politicians should not be corrupt. If your politicians are corrupt, I believe they need to be in prison by any means necessary. That's my view. Government corruption is the biggest problem in this world, in my view. Biggest problem. It's not climate change. It's not how much CO2 your car comes out. It's the corruption of politicians. The number one problem in the world is the corruption of politicians. Everything else stems from that. Okay, so when the revolution in Ukraine came, the pro-Russian president had to run to Russia to protect him. And he got replaced by, I forgot his name, by a not very pro-Russian president in Ukraine. And when that happened, Russia had a lot of assets in Ukraine. The biggest asset in Ukraine was Crimea. Again, going back to the map, Crimea, which is Russia's access to, well, this is more like a lake, but we're calling it a sea. It's the Black Sea, okay? So Russia's access to the Black Sea, okay? It's it's like their military. They have like military there. I mean, Russia has a lot of assets here. So when the Ukrainian president took over, the Ukrainian like pro-Ukrainian, not pro-Russia president took over Ukraine, Russia had to take their biggest asset back to Russia because this area was basically always Russia, but it was, you know, on paper Ukraine when it was all one country. So Russia said, we're going to take our biggest asset in Ukraine. And that's when the military conflict happened as a result of them realizing that the future politics of Ukraine are going to be pro-West and not pro-East. And Trump comes in, and there was kind of peace here because you can watch a video, an old Trump video. It's on my Twitter. Like, here's what Trump had to say about the situation back in 2017. Posted it this morning. And basically, well, about NATO and stuff. But Trump also apparently had, you know, very harsh words towards Putin about continuing military action in Ukraine. But during that time, Ukraine continued to be more and more friendly towards the West. Now, you can't blame the Ukrainian people for wanting to be friendlier to the West. Everyone wants to be like America, okay? Ukraine has the ability to go to do tourism in Europe. They have the ability to go to universities in Europe. Maybe that's not that simple. I am oversimplifying a lot. So Ukraine was starting to move to the West. Russia is upset about that because they just lost their ally the way Belarus is their ally. Ukraine is also a very poor country that Russia has kind of been supporting for a long time with energy and with other things because, again, same people, same ancestry. So Russia has been supporting Ukraine, especially while a Russian president is in Ukraine. Now that a pro-Ukrainian president is there, and I really thought that the president before the current president of Ukraine, or prime minister, same concept, was good, But the current one is even more pro-West and even more anti-Russia and more pro-West, more nationalist Ukraine and less pro-Russia. And one of the reasons Putin is potentially pissed is, well, if we've been helping you for, a decade, if not decades, and now you guys are just going to turn your backs on us and go completely pro-West, try to get into the European Union, try to get into NATO, get on the West agenda, and you're making Russia weaker by leaving our alliance. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with him being pissed off at Ukraine not being grateful. Now, you can't fault Ukraine. Ukraine wants to do what's best for Ukraine. So Ukraine doing what's best for Ukraine is becoming more Western than more Eastern. That's that's what the Ukrainian people want. But that comes with the potential backlash of turning your back on Russia without the official backing of the West. So the West can't come in and help them because they were not able to get into NATO. They were not able to be part of Europe. It's like Russia can't attack Estonia. It's right on their border. They can't attack Latvia. They can't attack Lithuania. These were all former Russia, right? Because these are NATO allies, and it would be like declaring war on United States. But Ukraine never finalized that deal, and Russia was not going to let them finalize that deal. And here we are in this giant disaster of Russia, entering Ukrainian soil, and under the pretext of we're defending the Russians in the east. So prior to them going in, they had acknowledged that these two regions should be allowed a vote for independence. Now, again, double-edged sword. On the one hand, everyone says vote on, I hope I don't lose this. On the one hand, people says, hey, let there be free elections. Let people vote on their own fate, on their own governments. But at the same time, there we go again. But at the same time, when those two regions of East Ukraine, which have a lot of Russians there, wanted to vote for independence, that it wasn't even acknowledged. It's like, no, you're part of Ukraine. You can't vote for independence. Same thing with the United States. Going into civil war back in the 1800s, when the South wanted to say, hey, we want to be our own country. Okay. And it was a lot more to that than the slave issue. That was not even the main reason for them doing that. We're not going to get into American history here. Ironically, history was my worst subject in school. It was one of two classes I actually got an F in, ironically, in high school. But because I hated it. But as I got older, I became more and more interested in history. So I started paying more attention and actually reading instead of cutting history class in high school. But also, it's probably a good thing, because anything that was taught to me about history in high school was probably US propaganda. Because I had my Russian history classes when I was young in Russia. And then when I came to American school, I was being taught history from a different perspective. So me cutting so many history classes when I was in high school probably helped me understand history better when I became older and actually was able to understand it in a non-biased liberal education, your teacher in high school way. Okay. You also have to question the life choices of a high school history teacher. No offense to any high school history teachers in the audience, right? Like math and science is a little different, but. So I don't think I would have learned anything in high school history class anyway. That was worth a damn. So let's get back to, well, hopefully this will come back. Wish this website worked better. Back to live. Yes, back to live math. So, hey, here we go. It's back. So here we are. As Ukraine tries to go and align itself with the West, it pisses off Russia more. So back to these two regions, right? So these regions, now I don't know if it was propaganda. I don't know if it was Russia trying to manipulate the vote. I don't know. I don't know. But these two regions were trying to be independent. And it's possible that had they become independent, they would have voted to be part of Russia. It's possible. They also could have voted to stay part of Ukraine. But Russia decided to recognize these two regions as independent, let them have a vote. Maybe they can become their own country. Maybe they can become two different countries. But these two regions are predominantly Russian. And we want to protect and support the Russians in these areas. Okay. Now, is this right? Is this wrong? That's for everyone else to judge. I'm just trying to explain the situation. Now, by trying to explain the situation, I will be labeled as a Russian apologist. Okay, I said this on the prior channel. I will be labeled a white supremacist. I'll be labeled Russian, apologist, all this stuff, right? I'm not excusing the fact that Russia went in guns blazing into Europe, right? I'm just explaining some of the things how I see it. Now, I could be wrong here, right? People could correct me, put comments in my videos. I do read those, okay? I could be totally wrong, and there could be other stuff behind the scenes that I don't know about, right? But this is the somewhat predominant view as to what escalated the tanks rolling in. So by not allowing these two regions to go independent, which is personally, I don't think that's a good enough excuse to go in guns blazing, but it gave Putin a reason under the guise of this is not a military power. This is not a NATO country. There is nobody stopping me from rolling the tanks in internationally. So I'm going to go in as by protecting the Russians in this area. And I'm going to annex this area the way I did this area. And because these guys are put, and the more resistance Ukraine puts up, the more of their territory I'm going to take. Okay, that is probably the view. Okay. Yeah, no, Ukrainians are tough. They're very proud of their country. Like I said, once again, I got to do a disclaimer. One of my parents was born in the Ukrainian territory. The other parent was born in the Russian territory. Okay, I was born in the Russian territory back when it was all one country. If 2 years ago you asked me where would I go on vacation, I would have said Ukraine 10 out of 10 times. Okay, have I been to Russia? Yes. I've only been to two cities, Moscow and St. Petersburg. In Kiev, I've only been to two cities. Well, I've been to Chernobyl. I've been to three cities. I've been to Kiev, Chernobyl, and Odessa. Okay. I wanted to go to other parts of Ukraine. I didn't get a chance to. I would have gone to, I heard this is beautiful up here in the West, but I would have gone with a group of Ukrainians. Like I would have gone with locals. I was not going to go off to West Ukraine on my own. Maybe it's, when I travel, I do take some precautions. I know I can tweet out from a random bar in the middle of nowhere. I'm hanging out having a drink, but I do take some precautions. I would have easily gone to the east because my language would have been, it would have been easier for me to communicate here in the east in Russian than out here in the west in Russian. Okay. So where was I? So the more fight Ukraine puts up, probably the more of the country Putin will take. Probably. Democratic solution. Well, democratic solution probably would have been giving up this area. Would have saved Ukrainian lives. Is that a good solution? I don't know. I mean, Ukraine wouldn't be happy about it. I don't know if these people would have been happy about it. I don't know. I don't know anyone from this area. I don't know. I don't know if how oppressed the Russians in this area are by the Ukrainians. I don't know. Okay. That was one of the pretenses. So to kind of flip the situation over a little bit, let's say this giant country of Russia was not this huge military power. Let's say Russia had no nukes and it did not have large military power, right? But they were very different politically, okay? Very different politically, but they weren't a huge military power. Let's flip the situation to the United States. I may have to go to a Google map, okay? I may have to go to a Google map. Let me see here. map. So on a Google map, so it's hard for me to use Alaska as a. So let's say this area of America is suddenly, turning their back on like aligning with Russia. And America doesn't like it, right? So it's kind of like, and they can go in and like take it over, right? Or I'm trying to find a good analogy here. Like Russia is doing it because they can. They can. They're angry at Ukraine and Ukraine not aligning with them and turning their backs on them. And at the same time, they're not happy about the potential NATO, NATO coming in. All right, let me look at your live chat. We don't. No, the U.S. should not take Canada. No, there's way too many socialists and communists in Canada. It's the last thing the U.S. needs to take. If the U.S. takes anything, it should be Mexico. At least they're more. At least they're less socialist brainwashed down there. All right, we can cut that. One more thing. Oh yeah, great little speech by Ted Cruz being pro Bitcoin, which is great. Oh, we're gonna go to Clown World Twitter. I'm really curious what Zuby thinks about the political situation. I couldn't agree with him more on the COVID situation. I wonder if him and I are going to agree on a political situation. Yeah. Every time I need to glance at, like, I wake up in the morning and my entire feed is like Clown World, and then I actually try to look for it and never shows up. Anyway. Yeah, that was sad. Like a Russian tank basically running over a Ukrainian. Drivers of the car survived. I don't know I mean, like, obviously it's a borderline tank driving over a car, but I don't know the pretense here. We're assuming that's operated by Russians. Obvious. I mean, like, I don't know for sure, but that is going to be that's the consensus. It would be a very small chance that it's not. So that's the obvious assumption here. And the reason for it is, I don't know, if this is an area controlled by Russia, did they announce don't be in the streets? We're going to perceive you as a threat and we're going to do this. These are the things that I don't know. But it's a sad video of a tank-like vehicle driving over a car with a person in it. Again, go back to the pretense of the U.S. entering World War I, the Lusitania. Hope people know their history, right? The Germans put out an ad in an American newspaper saying, civilians, do not travel on these ships. These ships are transferring ammunition to our enemies in Britain, and they're using civilian ships in these waters to transmit weapons in a war America is not involved in. if you travel on these ships, we will sink them. That was Germany. And people got on, Americans got on the Lusitania, and the Germans sunk that ship as they said they would do, creating the pretense for the US entering the war. Now, it's unfortunate that it went down that way. But people were warned not to get on that ship. If you are afraid of the virus, like what happened, in 2020, 2021, and then you get on an airplane, and then you're upset, how come the airplane doesn't let a person sit 3 rows away from any other person? Well, why are you on that airplane, right? If the virus is so dangerous and you are scared, why are you on that plane? Most people were on that plane by choice. You wanted to take that vacation, and then you blame someone else for getting COVID, right? Like, stay home. Stay home. Don't go. No, false flags are very, very constant. It's hard to get good information everywhere. All right, I gotta search for it. I still have 600 live viewers. Yeah, well, people are realizing how important the Second Amendment is. You don't need to hand out guns in time of war. People would have them if they're being invaded. Right. Like, coronavirus is suddenly important, right? That's all US papers care about. Like, another casualties of Russian invasion, Ukraine's ability to contain the coronavirus. Do these people know that the pandemic's over? I've had Omicron. I had fever for 1 night, and then I was tired for 7 days. New York Times, here's what's important. Video images of the large number of Ukrainians on the move show understandably few signs of face coverings, right? So Ukrainians are fleeing for their lives, but hey, New York Times, well, how come they're not wearing masks? The mask will save you. The mask will save you from the bullets. Like, this is insane. It's absolutely insane. Why aren't we investigating? Anyway, I don't want to keep reading, because then this YouTube channel is going to be banned. Like every video I referenced back in 2014 on my blog. Anyway, I need to get back to organizing the conference. Come join us in Las Vegas, guys, where we're going to talk about Bitcoin. I will be so out of touch with what's going on in geopolitics once I, get this conference off the ground. Why not get rid of the communist and socialist agenda? It is very difficult. It is very difficult. It feels like the majority of the world is socialist/communist. It is very difficult. The general population would back US over the government of Canada. But remember, most of American politicians, 98% of all American college professors, they're all socialist and communist. The education system is leaning to the left to such an extent. The politics is not as bad as the educational system, right? But the educational system is almost completely dominated by socialism and communism teaching. Every field, physics and math and Science and math used to be less so socialist and communist, but not even anymore. It's a real problem. And they don't even realize it. I went to 2 liberal colleges, 2. I can't even tell you which one was worse. And one of them was in Florida. All right. All right, guys. That's it for me. So thank you all for watching. And I will praying for the people in Ukraine to stay safe, or as safe as they can be. Try to get over to Poland. Yeah, no, according to the US media, your best defense against Russia is to get vaccinated. I'm waiting for that headline. Like, let's see if the CNN will beat the Babylon Bee to that headline. Your best defense against Russians is to get vaccinated. I can definitely see that headline. I'm not even going to know if it's satire or not. All right, guys. Thank you all for watching. I will try to keep you updated on my contacts. Well, like the worst thing is if my contacts in Ukraine stop messaging. But that could also mean Russia took down the internet there. It's possible. I'm more surprised that has not yet happened because Russia is bombing certain things. Oh, there was one more thing I was going to show. We still have 500 live viewers. It was on my Twitter. I don't know how true it is. I really don't. But Twitter took it down. Whenever Twitter takes something down, it makes me, it gives me an 85% confidence chance that it was true. So if I go to my notification, I saw it this morning, and I thought it was interesting. Where is it? Here. So here it is. Thanks, Kelly, for pointing me to this. So Twitter took this down. It was a Twitter thread. And okay. How do I read it? Oh, wow. So not only is it has it been removed from Twitter, it has also been removed from this website. That, wow. Well, at least I read it this morning. You guys won't get a chance to read it, but I read it. So this was basically a Twitter thread with a bunch of analysis that connected these Russian strikes all around Ukraine in these obscure areas and connected those areas to, how do I say this without being banned? It connected it to biolabs, similar to Institute of, starts with a W, in a country I don't want to say. So that's what that Twitter thread was talking about. It was explaining all of these random strikes, happened to coincide with places where certain American-funded organizations were doing research on certain things that gave us a problem over the last 2 years leading up to this. And it made the connection that maybe Russia didn't want that stuff so close to their border. Though bombing these places could potentially release those issues. But it's interesting that I can no longer read what I read 2 hours ago on this website because this was taken down from Twitter initially. Let me see. Maybe it's my laptop. Maybe my phone will do it. And the more this gets censored, everyone's experience over the last 2 years, the more something gets censored, probably the more true it actually is. This is the reality of the situation. Because if it wasn't censored, it could be openly discussed and perhaps debunked. But when you constantly censor it, you are basically telling people, like, how come nobody censors flat earth theory? I've debated so many flat earthers. How come that is not being censored? How is that not misinformation? That's perfectly fine. That's a conspiracy theory. That's perfectly fine. But not this. Can't discuss this. I want to be able to discuss it. If it's false, let's discuss it. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm just going to my phone and I'm going to try to open it from my phone like I did this morning. Nope. Cannot read it on my phone, which I read 2 hours ago. Censored, account suspended, everything done. That's curious, no? Are you curious? I'm curious. All right. That's it. I'm going to leave it there. Let's see if this YouTube channel stands tomorrow. But join us at the conference. Join us at Unconfiscatable. That event's going to be politics free. Just so you know. See you all there. Bye, guys.